Where you going? No, man. You got the right classroom. Come on in, take a seat beside me, my friend. Hey, look, here come T.A. Charlie. Let's see what he got to say.
Well, welcome to Worship Wednesday on Thursday. I hope everybody made it through the storms and everything. Hopefully, people have power so they can watch us today.
Aaron says he's still in the dark, man.
Oh, no. Well, he's always in the dark. But anyway, morning. You're watching The Road to Concord with Professor Joe Bacanova.
Army, you've just been carpet bombed.
Homeroom is on Rumble. You just go to Rumble and you search the channels for The Road to Concord. It's one word. When you find it, you go ahead and you click follow. It might mean you got to set up an account, but it's fast and it's easy and it's free. I did it. You can do it. For those technologically challenged members of the class, you can also catch us on Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter, and sometimes on YouTube like today. And it's not even Wednesday. What do you think of that? And maybe sometime on BitChute. We're working on that. Then you can catch the podcast after the show. It's uploaded to Podbean, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Just go to The Road to Concord. You can go to the blog page. That's theroadtoconcord.com. That's where you find all your show notes, study notes, and handouts for the class. Finally, you can email a professor at joe@theroadtoconcord.com. He's a little slow, but he'll eventually get around to emailing you back. If you find our classes helpful, please click the thumbs up, like, subscribe, and share it with those you think could benefit from it. Just warn them, Joe is an acquired taste. And we do mean that, by the way.
Hey, we all know T.A. Charlie isn't all there. Now, just stay seated and give it a chance. You'll soon realize we not might be the smartest, but we each independently form opinions based on reason and logic. We're free thinkers. Let's see what the Road to Concord with Professor Joe Bacanova has on the lesson plan for today.
Charlie left Aaron speechless. He goes, I got nothing for that one. That's what happens when you get hit with a B-52 carpet bombing, man. Knocks you back into the Stone Age. All right, for those of you, we could have done the show yesterday for all that we took. I mean, we didn't even get any rain, at least not where I live. I was praying for it, but nothing. We didn't even get much in the way of wind, just enough to knock the straw down out of the. It figures. It figures. I guaranteed nothing bad would happen when I decided we'd take off just in case. Caution ends up in a wasted day. Anyhow, well, wasted show day. For those of you in southern Georgia, over there in Tallahassee and central north parts of Florida, though, I hope everything's okay for y'all over there. I know we've got a lot of members of the class that are in those areas. We're seeing some of the class reporting in now. Just hopes and prayers and thoughts are with you out there if you're still struggling to catch back up from this thing, man. I hate hurricanes. It is kind of like they say on Facebook. It is kind of like being stalked by a turtle. But once it gets there, it can be rough. And those of us who survived that that F3 Fujita 50-mile wide F3 tornado that we call Michael, we feel for you. We understand. We've been there. Also real quick, a little bit more housekeeping. Charlie told you we're trying to get on the BitChute. Right now, BitChute's playing Stump the Chump with Charlie, and it's winning. So we're okay.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Class in Georgia. All right, we got all that covered. Today's Worship Wednesday on Thursday. Yeah. Go figure that one out. Hey, dude, it's modern era. Anything goes, right? Okay. So it's Wednesday on Thursday, and tomorrow we'll have Monday on Friday. That ought to really mess up your weekend. Oh, I just realized something. I'm not allowed to say that. It's Worship Wednesday, and I can't tell you that, FSU's playing tonight. Anyhow, I'm supposed to talk about football. That's somebody else's show. We're going to be continuing here in just a minute with Ellis Schofield. Not from the Schofield Bible, but Schofield. He did a slideshow that goes hand in hand with his books. These are the two books that the slideshow comes from. This is Hidden Beast 2 on the left and Sozo, Survival Guide for a Remnant Church on the right. They're essentially the same book. The one on the left, Hidden Beast 2, if you are of an interest to do so, that's the book I recommend you get. Because Sozo is an update of Hidden Beast 2, but not necessarily a clarification. as Mr. Schofield learned more and more about Islam, he started trying to fine tune his understanding of prophecy a little bit. And Sozo, if that's the only one you can get, it's okay. It's better than the slide presentation, but it isn't Hidden Beast 2. Hidden Beast 2 is a really good book if you're into biblical prophecy. It's not perfect. It's not going to give you all the answers. It's going to get you thinking in a different direction. That's what it's good for. Shove you off of the daggum stool you've been sitting on. Correct some really bad prophetic theology. There are certain things that a lot of us have been taught that are not in your Bible anywhere, not even hinted at. And yet the church is sitting around waiting for it to happen. And one of the beautiful things that Brother Schofield did for us is he brought the receipt. Heck, he brought the whole daggum book to us and showed us how some of these myths came to be in the church today. But there's a few other things before we get going. Last week we dealt a lot with Islam, right? Don't think that Brother Schofield is alone in his thinking here. This book here on the left, this is God's War on Terror, Islam Prophecy in the Bible. It's by Walid Shubat, former Muslim. He claims to have been a terrorist. That's up to you. You decide what you want to do with that. It's co-written by Joel Richardson. Unfortunately, both of these men have bought into what I call the Tim LaHaye left behind, eschatology of end times prophecy. And I don't blame them for that. That's what's taught in the church today for the most part. It's wrong. And if you've been with us through the 11, this is the 11th, if you've been through us all 10 of the shows so far in this series, we should pretty much have wrecked that Tim LaHaye idea of prophecy. We should have taken a wrecking ball to that already for you. But a lot of what's in this book about Islam is very informative. And then on the right, this is Joel Richardson's own version of the Mideast Beast. And they go into this fairly well. I've read both. Then you've also got other things that you could look at if you're wanting to track down this road. These two books are really, really good. This is Muhammad and Charlemagne by Henry Pirrini. And then you have Muhammad Charlemagne Revisited, The History of a Controversy by Emmett Scott. Essentially, the one on the right, the Revisited, that's a defense and expounding on the first one, Muhammad and Charlemagne. What are these two books about? This is about the jihad into the Christian Europe and across the ancient world of the Holy Lands. Very good reading. It will change the narrative of what you think happened in ancient civilization and why it collapsed. Very good books. If you only read one, read the one on the right, Muhammad and Charlemagne Revisited, but that's up to y'all. And then these two can be very helpful too. Paul Fregosi writes the book Jihad. Oh boy, is that an eye-opener. Because essentially, he gets into the Islamic archives and he reads through what Islam says about the jihad, and then he just brings you the narrative of what he learned. So he's reporting from inside the camp. And then on the right here, this is Alfred J. Andrea and Andrew Holt. They write a book, The Seven Myths of the Crusades. The Crusades are not what we've been taught. Not entirely. People need to remember the Crusades were not an offensive war. They were defensive against jihad. So these two books here go very well with those two, with Muhammad and Charlemagne. Matter of fact, all four of those, if you're of the mind and have the time, they would do very well to be read together. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to get a really good idea. They're all documented. They're all footnoted. They're all good scholarship. And you'll come away with a very different idea of what Islam is in history. And then you have to ask yourself, if Islam is this big a deal in the Holy Land for this many years, at least one millennial, going on 1.5 now, do we really think that God, Yahweh, is going to just totally ignore Islam in his prophetic word? Because, his prophecy is about what happens to Jerusalem. That's the footstool, forever and ever, Yahweh's footstool. That's the center of the universe, according to his heart. So why aren't we seeing Islam anywhere in prophecy? Well, we have. we've overlooked it because we were looking for something different. We're going to get into Brother Scofield's slide here in just a minute. We're going to pick back up. We're going to be picking up in the two-horned beast. This is the point where I've got to caution you a lot. At this point in time, 2012, 2014, when Brother Scofield had put this slide presentation together and he was taking it from church to church and he was teaching it, he's still learning about Islam. And I know some of this because of an email exchange or two I had with him. I'm not an expert on Islam, but I knew enough. I know enough from having talked to Brother Scofield before he was called home. I understood Islam a lot better than he did. Don't get me wrong. He understood Islam better than most of us do, but because Brother Scofield's still stuck on the idea of a resurrected Rome in the figure of the Third Reich, the Hitler's Germany. I don't agree with that. Personally, me, but Brother Scofield never gave that up. So what I think it was is later in life, he got more pieces of the puzzle. And rather than trying to look for more pieces or understand them, he started trying to hammer some of them into place. I don't condemn him or fault him for that one bit. Okay. And I could be wrong. A little paw in the air. I could be wrong. He might be right. I don't think so. But we're going to go through his slideshow now, starting with the two-horned beast, the lambkin. And I'm going to have to stop at several points and give you my own take on some of this, because I think he goes a little farther than he should have. He does not do that in his book, The Hidden Beast 2. This was written in 1990. The slide we're doing now is from 2012, 2014, 24 years later, 24 years later. And he's very elderly. He's in his 80s at this time, I think. Late 70s, early 80s. And he's gotten a little curmudgeon-y. Because, man, he bit my head off a couple of times. It's all right. I deserved it. But I don't know. Being human. Might have got a little too caught up in trying to make his case when he should have been happy with fuzzy feelings about certain things. I'll have to save that for when we come back from the next break. Okay, let's get into this. This is on slide 289 for those of you who have downloaded it. It is available in your show notes. You go to theroadtoconcord.com. It's also in the Rumble description. There's a link to it there. So lambs don't have horns. It says, but this lamb does. We're in Revelation 13. We're going to pick up in verse 11. Remember, Brother Scofield likes the King James Bible. If he uses a different translation, he tends to tell us. It says, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb. The Greek is Arnion or something, a little lambkin. And he spake as a dragon, and he exerciseth all the power of the first beast, the leopard, bear, lion beast, before him. This is an alpion here, in the sight of or in the presence of. So before him and in the presence of, in sight of. And causeth the earth and them which dwelleth therein to worship the first beast, the leopard, bear, lion beast, whose deadly wound was healed. That's the present Islamic jihad, according to Scofield. I agree with him there. And the two horns doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. Now, he's got a little note here. He says the Gulf War's bombing campaigns exactly fulfill this prophecy. In Hidden Beast 2, he talks about the rockets coming down on Israel. So he has always thought of the fire coming down from heaven as being, bombs and ordinances and everything. And it might be, but we'll get back to that. So the verse continues here. He says, and two horns deceiveth them that dwelleth on the earth by means of those miracles, modern science is according to Scofield, which he had power to do in the sight of the leopard, bear, lion beast, saying to them that dwelleth on the earth that they should make an image, a likeness to the Islamic beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. We're going to stop right here for a minute. This is one of the things where I say, I wish Brother Scofield had not tried to do as much and tightened up what he did do. I think the church would have been better served. Here he'll tell you that the beast that had the head wound and then does liveth again is jihad, is Islam. I agree. But then later in this slideshow, this very same slideshow, he's going to go back to the beast that has the head wound and comes to life again being Rome, resurrected Rome. They can't be both. Rome was not Islam. And yet he argues both. Unless, of course, he's trying to tell us there are two heads that were mortally wounded and came back to life, which is not what the book of Revelation says. So, for whatever reason, his logic starts to get a little inconsistent here. And if you've been with me any length of time, you know you might as well be neon flashing signs in the darkest night with Joe when you do that, because you have my undivided attention now, not necessarily in a good way. And this is one of the things I wrote him about. And this is one of the areas where he got a little testy with me. We never got a resolution out of any of this. So I just wanted to bring that to your side, to your attention. Now he does another one of his graphs here, and he says the time of the leopard bearer lion beast, Islamic dominion of the holy city from 688 AD to 1967. That fits, in my opinion. That fits. Okay, you have the first horn is the Crusades, and the second horn is the British Mandate. This is a possibility here. Okay, this is someplace. This is an area where he has cleaned up and maybe actually has improved on the Hidden Beast 2. Because in Hidden Beast 2, he thought the big horn was Catholicism and the little horn was Protestantism. I still haven't totally abandoned that yet. But he now has your Lambkin Beast as the Crusades. What Christian Europe is the beast. Christian Europe. And he's going to say that the little horn is the first crusade and the big horn is the second crusade, or the British Mandate. I don't like this as much. I still like Catholicism and Protestantism because they still work, but this could be a case of both fit. Well, his note here is Western Christian nations controlled the Holy Land twice during the Islamic domination. Once during the Crusades and the second time after World War I when the British Empire controlled the whole Middle East. This works. If you want to go that way, this works. It also still works for the lambkin. It's a beast that looks like a lamb. Let me help you walk. My dumb booty back in there. Okay. You have a beast that looks like a lamb, has horns like a lamb. Okay. The idea is to put lamb in your head. Lamb in your head is the Lamb of God, Christ, Messiah, Christianity. And your two horns would be two branches or two powers within Christianity. That is going to be the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church. Well, it's a beast, okay? And what kingdom does, well, Christianity is a kingdom itself. It's supposed to be the kingdom of God. But the way the church is now, it is by and large apostate. So it looks like Christ, but it speaks like Satan. So, and that is exactly what the description we have is. Has the appearance of the Messiah, but speaks like the dragon, speaks like Satan. So that works with the longer horn being the Roman Catholic Church. Because the Protestants, whether they like it or not, the Roman Catholic Church has flat out said, because you keep Sunday and because you follow the rest of our mandates on things like that, you're still under our authority. Sunday instead of the Sabbath. Do not think that should be dismissed. You need to dig into your scriptures real hard if you think it's okay to move the Sabbath to Sunday because that's the Lord's Day. The Lord's Day and the Sabbath are two different terms, two different things. So we did a show on that. You can go look it up. But this one here that Brother Schofield does for us also works. We could have the first horn being the Crusades, like a smaller kingdom type thing, a smaller power, smaller time of power. And then the bigger horn is the British Mandate. That kind of works. I don't like it as much, but it would kind of work. The reason I still stick with Catholicism and Protestantism is because they both work in this picture as well. The Western world is by and large Christian in nature. He continues, he says, the two-horned beast like a lamb is apparently Christian, but it speaks like a dragon. In other words, it's militarily aggressive. When the Christian, I disagree with that one, but okay. When the Christian nation's military conquered the Holy Land, they did not destroy the Dome of the Rock, nor drive the Muslims out. Two horns ruled in the presence of the leopard, bear, lion, beast. Today, the Islamic states are using two horns money to buy modern weaponry. So it is Western nations, the best with two horns, the beast with two horns, that is empowering the new jihad and bringing the image of the leopard, bear, lion, beast back to life. And he says, and I saw on one of its heads as if it had been slain, and his fatal wound was healed. The new jihad is an image or likeness of the first jihad. The leopard, bear, lion's wound is healed, and Islam once again threatens the Western world. All right, let me bounce this back out of here for a second again and walk you through something here. If we go with the two-horned beast, like a lamb, speaks like a dragon, if that's just the first and second crusade, how do we explain what we're doing right now, or have been doing since Obama's time? We're in the Middle East before the leopard, bear, lion, right in his presence, just like scripture says, and we're bringing it back to life. Literally, Obama brought the caliphate back to life. Literally. Did Obama speak like pretend to be part of the lambkin? Yeah, he pretended to be Christian, but he was Muslim, still is. And he's speaking Islam, and he's supporting Shia Islam. So he speaks like the dragon. And it's all about peace, the Muslim Arab Spring or whatever, all about peace. Now, I'm not saying he's an antichrist, I'm saying he's a form of it. Yes, he is, because he form and function, he fits it. But so do a lot of others, Republicans, Democrats, they all fit it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to crystal ball this one. What I'm saying, though, is if the two horns are the first and second crusade, where's the third horn for what we're doing now? But if the two horns are Christianity and Protestantism, the apostate church, then the two-horned beast is a parallel image of the harlot riding the seven-headed beast. In other words, two horns and the harlot are the same thing. An apostate church. It fits, especially when you overlay the chiasms and parallelism in the book of Revelation. This is why I hold with it. Not only does it fit better, it also explains what we're doing with Islam right now, bringing it back to life. We, the Western world, led by the United States, has brought the caliphate back to life. We've even funded it. Just so Brother Schofield's in the right. He's in the ballpark. He's just out there in right or left field. He's not even in the cheap seats, man. He's in the ballpark off in right and left field somewhere. He's getting there. Had Yahweh given him more time, he might have finished getting there. But this is just... I just probably had a few more pieces of the puzzle than he did. That's all. Or I was looking at him differently than he did. Either way, hopefully it'll get us to look at this differently in scripture. So the number of the beast, Revelation 13, picking up in verse 15, then going through 18. And he, remember everything in red, if you're watching the chalkboard, everything in red, that's Schofield's editorialism. And if you're just listening, I'm just reading it as though this is an amplified Bible. I'm adding it right on in as I read it. So this isn't going to be word for word from your scriptures. And he, the two-horned beast, had power to give life unto the image of the leopard, bear, lion beast, that the image of, that's today's revitalized Islam, the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the revitalized beast should be killed, which is indeed the fate of those who turn to Jesus in the Islamic lands. If you're not worshiping Islam in the caliphate area now, you are getting killed. You're being murdered. And martyred in this case. And he, the leopard, bear, lion, causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their forehead, showing allegiance. And that no man may buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the Islamic beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of Islamic beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So what man had the number 666? Before we get to that, let's stop one more time. If you understand Islam, in an Islamic nation, you see sometimes the green or the black bands with the Islamic writing on them that they wear on their arm or in their head, on their head. Because the Greek here does not say the mark has to be necessarily in your hand. In your head and in your hand. This is goes back to the command in Deuteronomy, I think it is, where we're told to bind the word of Yahweh, word of God on our foreheads, our frontlets, front of our head, and in our hand. what it means is what you think and do. So this is John being a Hebrew. He's probably using that Hebraic way of thinking here and way of writing and talking about this. So where you're thinking you're going to get a mark in your hand, more than likely what this is about, and you might, don't get me wrong, there have been many such things like this throughout history. In the time John's writing, the postal road that the 7 churches of Revelation are on, they used to sell silver trinkets, idols, literal idols. And you had to buy one to travel the postal road. It was a form of tax. And once you bought one so that you didn't have to buy another one, they'd put an indigo mark on your forehead or on your hand. Like that purple mark that we saw in Iraq when they were all voting, their thumb was purple. They put a mark like that on your hand or your forehead to show that you'd bought your idol. Okay. So what I'm getting at now is Islam does the same thing. If you're Islamic, you wear these bands on your arm or your forehead, and they mark you as a Muslim. If you're a dhimmi, which means you're a Christian or a Jew, everybody else either converts or dies. If you're a Christian or a Jew, you either have to convert to Islam or you exist like a Jewish person in Germany in the 1930s. You know, you got to dress a certain way. You got to have your yellow star on your pocket and everything. Well, they're called dhimmis in Islam. And you have to cut your hair a certain way. You got to wear your clothes a certain way. And you're not allowed to buy, sell, or trade. Unless, of course, you convert over. So there's a lot of parallels here that fit Islam. But they fit things that have been this pattern has been in the world ever since the ascension. And that's the thing. Don't get caught up in looking for the only one manifestation of a prophecy. Look for the patterns, because Revelation was written to all generations from the ascension forward until the return. And it says so. So it's going to have these patterns throughout every generation during the Christian era. And this is something that Brother Schofield and I kind of wrestled with. He didn't like that, but that's okay. So here's a direct quote from an Islamic site. There are over 300 Islamic sites on the internet declaring that 666 is the number of the Quran and Muhammad. One of those sites is www.quran66619.org, and it's quoted below. In the name of Allah, not God. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, 666, the Quran. At the very beginning of the last millennium in human history, by Allah's will, excuse me, I misspoke. I'm trying to convert these names for you so that you know which God we're talking about. This is important. There are more than one Elohim in the world. It says, I did count the letter Of, which is the first letter of the Quran. After research, I witnessed the number 666, which is Surah 11:17, which is Surah means the passage in the Quran, and witnessed the awesome message 66165. Allah, there is no other Elohim or God besides Allah. Okay. Like I said, this is going to get all confusing for a lot of people. If you get nothing else from this, from today, this is your takeaway. If you get nothing else, this is your takeaway. I might not have understood prophecy the way the Bible wanted me to. All you get from it, and you kind of erase what you thought you knew and you start all over again, amen. Hallelujah. We've done our job. But the Bible, speak for the Bible. But 666 is, Muhammad claimed it. Muhammad claimed it for himself and for the Quran. That's true. That's the truth. But it's also the number of man. And when you understand that Islam is the negation of Christianity, of the new covenant, and I mean, whatever we say, whatever the Yahweh says the new covenant's good, Islam says it's bad. Whatever the new covenant says is bad, Islam says it's good. They are the photo negatives of each other. In Islam and the kingdom of Yahweh, they're both borderless kingdoms. Islam is a copycat of the kingdom of Yahweh, borderless. Okay, it's a spiritual kingdom. Islam is a borderless spiritual kingdom. It fits with the idea that the fourth beast in Daniel is going to be dreadful and terrible and unlike any other ones that have come before it. Everybody thinks, well, Rome was dreadful. Yeah. Go study the Assyrians, man. Rome crucified you. The Assyrians would literally skin you alive. Which one would you prefer? Huh? So, no. But what's different about Islam is that it's a spiritual in nature. And no other nation before that, no other kingdom before that was that way. And the only reason because it wasn't is because the devil hadn't seen Yahweh's plans yet. So 666 can be connected to Muhammad in Quran. Also the number of man. Whenever Yahweh wants to get your attention, he speaks once, yea, twice. And if he really wants to hammer it home, he does it thrice. So man, man, man. It's like saying, okay, all these people who think they're gods. No, you're just a man. You're a man. You're a man. Now, some of the older parchments from the book of Revelation have what looks like 616 or 613 or whatever. It's a different number. And this is true. You will find it. And most of those parchments, from what I've been able to gather, tend to come from the Byzantine part of Rome, the Greek, the side of the Roman Empire closer to the Holy Lands, to the leopard bear lion king's lair. And Walid Shubat, the man who did God's War on Terror, says that that's what caused him to become a Christian. Got a hold of a Bible, started reading from the back because, he's Arabic. He thinks you read right to left, and he ran into this 666 number. Only he was looking at one of the older codexes, and what he said it is he doesn't think it's a number. He says he thinks it's the Bismillah. It's the Arabic abbreviation for jihad. And he said it shocked him to see that the prophet John was writing about jihad being antichrist in the 1st century. And he realized that that's what apparently woke him up and made him realize he was on the wrong team. So, being an old Marine with institutional memory back to Vietnam, Walid Shubat, then Muslim terrorist, said, Choi, which is Vietnamese for I switch sides. Okay. And he went over to Yahweh's team, Team Yahweh. I don't know. I know that 666 is mentioned in your Bible. One other place, 666 talents of gold given to Solomon every year. And I know that that's gold, right? And if you go back to the story in Daniel of the gold figure that Nebuchadnezzar built, 6 is a prominent figure there. It's so many 6 this, 6 that, 60 this, whatever. There's 6 different materials mentioned, 6 different instruments. 6 comes up a couple of times. In the number 6 starts rhyming in there. It's all man-made stuff. So what is the mark of the beast? I don't know. We're going to get to that in another class. He focuses on that in another week or so. But the number is connected to Islam. Muhammad did that. Muhammad boasted about that. Here's another quote from www.Quran666.66619.org. Also, 19 is a number that is heavily associated with Islam. And you're going to find that in an African-American communities where they're into Islam, they're into that number 19 as well. This all, if I don't know if you're aware of it, if you've done any work, and number 19 rhymes a lot in certain communities in this country. That's where it's coming from. It's coming from Islam. The number 666 is highly publicized all over the world, and it is associated with evil and danger. However, it is not what it seems. This is the quote from the Quran site, folks. This is from the Quran site. It says the trick was to prevent the people approaching the 666. It says Satan knew that 666 is the book of Allah and the people should be kept away from it. According to his plan, he placed a bad image to the number 666. Don't believe it. Just type Quran 666. This is Schofield. Don't believe that. Type Quran 666 into your browser's address line and look at the numerous sites. And the church keeps its mouth shut on all of this. Now, this is true. What's up here is true. Islam will tell you that 666 is the number of the Quran, which means the Bible tells you that 666 is connected to the Antichrist or the dragon, to Satan. Notice what this site here did on this Quranic site says, no. The person we think of as God, Yahweh, that's Satan. And they said, and God Yahweh doesn't want anybody reading the Quran. So he warned everybody about the number 666. So the Muslims say the real, God, the real Elohim or whatever, Allah, he wants everybody to come to it. So you've got a flip-flop here, folks. You have a 180-degree flip-flop, which brings to mind the question, how do those two coexist? Never mind about that rabbit. Also, you have to remember, though, that in the Bible, I mean, in the Quran, rather, the Bible is said to be a book of light, education, teaching, and light, and all Muslims are commanded to read it. And that passage is never abrogated. And the Bible is also called truth. You have to read it for truth and light, enlightenment. Well, isn't that what the Bible tells us it is? Truth and light? Well, evil has to admit that. Evil must admit that. That is in the Quran. This is all Muslims should read the book, which is the Bible. Read the book for truth and light. And he never abrogates that, meaning Muhammad never goes back and undoes that. He just then turns around and says, but that truth and life book isn't that's not Allah. You got to read the Quran. Well, the Quran didn't exist until Muhammad had been dead for 150 years. Yeah, it didn't get written until he and his immediate followers had all been dead for a long time. So what we have here is a big old mess. But essentially, Islam is the negation of the new covenant in the kingdom of Yahweh. And we just read one of the passages from Islam. This is a quote from the Islamic site. And it's telling you Satan knew that 666 is the book of God. Well, in this case, what that really should say, Yahweh knew that 666 would be the number of the Quran and Allah, and that the people should keep away from it. And I corrected that for them there in that passage. So Scofield says, which man in history has led over 2 billion people away from the Savior of the world? The false prophet of Revelation is not someone in our future. He's been here for over 1,300 years. And if you go in the history of man, there's only one human being who has been known as the prophet, Muhammad. And if you say, well, this has got to be a man who's alive today alive in the end. No, he doesn't. No, Muhammad's alive. He's alive in the same sense that the Messiah is alive. The spirit of Muhammad's everywhere. People take his, what the most popular name for a male child is in the world, right? Muhammad. He's alive and well, folks. The spirit of Muhammad, just like the spirit of Elijah was in John the Baptist. We're dealing with this. This is spiritual warfare, and it is everywhere. He's got this number here. 666 is Muhammad and the Quran.
Isn't there some Islamic prophecy that the last caliph will be named Muhammad or something like that?
Oh, yeah. Dude, Charlie, the 12th Imam it will be the next caliph, the leader of Islam. He's their Messiah. He's our Antichrist.
Right, yeah. Just the direct opposite.
Yes. Yeah. Now, understand something, folks. You're not going to find Satan embodied in a man Antichrist figure in your Bible. John tells you clearly the 4 places that word is ever used. John is telling you it's a spirit, it's a spirit, it's a spirit, it's a spirit. We will not beat that in our stupid heads. So it could be 1 billion people are Antichrist. But we are told that there will be a military leader who comes against Israel in the end times. Everybody thinks, well, there's your Antichrist. Well, that military leader is very likely the 12th Imam.
Right.
So if we've been deceived to go look for that Satan-embodied human being known as the Antichrist, who deceived us into believing that? Yahweh or Satan? Satan deceived us into looking for, well, then he's going to turn around and fulfill his own prophecies. Just in a different way that you're not looking for. It's all about deceiving us, folks. It's all about getting the remnant, those who seek Yahweh. It's getting us to look somewhere else or to lay down and not do the work of the kingdom. That's what this is all about. Either make you ineffective or lead you astray. And by the way, there are 99 beautiful names of Allah. One of them is Allah is the greatest of deceivers. Like I said, I just had more of the pieces than Brother Scofield did. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure he'd have stuck that in this slideshow because the Bible tells us who the deceivers are. That's of Satan. 7 times in the book of Revelation, we read about an hour of trial coming upon the earth. Now, this is some place where Brother Scofield breaks with his own logic. I don't like that, but this is his slideshow that we're walking through. He says an hour in day years is 15.44 days. So there will be a 2-week time of great trouble coming upon the world at the end of the Christian era. The epicenter of this final Holocaust will once again be Israel. Right now, it looks like Islam is winning, but according to the Bible, in this generation, and with your own eyes, you will see Islam fall. And then he gives you some passages down here: Revelation 3:10, Revelation 9:15, Revelation 14:7, Revelation 17:12, 18:10, 18:17, and 18:19. Here, I wish he just hadn't put in there the 15.44 days. Let that go. Because an hour is not a prophetic day, it's a prophetic hour. And when he gets to times, half a time, and all these other different things, and the millennial, Scofield goes looking for different definitions for those different terms. But in this case, he sees an hour and he divides that up. That's bad exegesis. That's bad logic. You don't do that. At best, he should have just said, okay, we've got a prophetic hour. I haven't yet identified that, but we know that there's a time coming. And Scofield thinks that the Holocaust was the time of Jacob's trouble. And that's because Brother Scofield didn't realize you have two houses of Israel. You got the house of Israel, house of Judah. They have not yet been fully combined. The time of Jacob's trouble is probably this hour of trial. That's probably the exact, it's two ways of saying the same thing. And I wish that Brother Scofield and I had had more time to discuss this. I think we'd have triangulated better. But he's talking about the fall of Islam. Now, I do believe that's going to come. Yahweh will take care of that. It says, 1, the leopard bear lion of Revelation 13 is Islam, Satan's kingdom on earth. Okay, I got no problem with that. The two-horned beast, verses 11 and 13 in the book of Revelations, is the Western Christian nations who twice controlled the Holy Land during our era. I've already told you, I got problems with that. Because who controls the Holy Lands right now, folks? The Western world again. Israel, the nation of Israel, and the West. We go in there and we kick them around whenever we desire. I mean, we just spent 11 years over there. Yeah. So no. That would have to be a three-horned beast to fit Brother Scofield's interpretation. But it could be Christianity. It could be Christianity. So 3, the image of the beast, verses 13 and 14, is the worldwide Islamic jihad of today. I can buy that. I got that. Verses 16 and 18 are still about Islam and about the true conditions of Christians and Jews in the Islamic countries. And then, therefore, the man of verse 18 is none other than Muhammad. Okay, I got that. Not a problem. This I like. And then gives us our little graph here. 688 AD to 1967 AD, the time of the leopard bear lion beast. That fits, folks, except in 1924, we kill off the caliphate. And it does not control much of nothing. The caliphate is dead. And that's the time period when the Balfour Agreement and everything starts getting written, which will allow Islam to come back. I mean, not Islam, Israel to come back into existence. Forgive me. I got a lot of things going on in my head and I'm getting ahead of my mouth. I need to slow down. The Balfour Agreement is the agreements that are going to allow Israel to come back into existence as a physical nation. And it'll happen in 1 hour, one night, one day, overnight, which is prophetic. And that's exactly what prophecy says happen. And then in 1967, the people of Israel, the army of Israel, takes Jerusalem back away from the remnant of the Muslim world. But Islam as a caliphate, the caliphate has not come back to life yet until Obama's time. Obama was working to bring the caliphate back into existence. When he says Arab Spring, that was code. That was a dog whistle for the caliphate. That's exactly what it was. And we've made that case here before, and one of these days I'll make it even stronger. But if you want to know more about Israel coming back and all the prophecy we're doing here, go read the Oracle. Charlie, what we're talking about right here today should be ringing real loud in your ears.
Oh, yeah.
This is all Oracle stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the events in history, in human history that happen in the Oracle happen on very important days in the Hebrew, not just Jewish, Hebrew calendar and timeline. And the scriptures that are being read at the times these things are happening are prophetic in nature.
Yeah.
So this is one of the reasons I'm having a lot of trouble misspeaking with you today. Is there's a lot of stuff running through my head at the moment, a lot, and I mean tons of it, and it all fits just pretty. There are a few pieces that don't line up. That's not. I'm not worried about that. But thanks, Charlie. But back to his graph here. So you got the two-horned beasts or the Crusades. I don't like that, but okay. And then he said, you read that if you want on your own. We've already covered this. Let's go to the next one here. It says, contextually, it follows that the beast of Revelation 14 is still the leopard bear lion, Satan's Islamic empire in the Middle East. I agree. So we're going to go to, remember, they didn't have chapter and verse when this was written. So Revelation 14, beginning in verse 9. And he says, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worshipped the Islamic beast and his image, the new jihad, or possibly the Kaaba stone, maybe, and receives his mark on his forehead or his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth forever and ever. And they have no rest day or night who worship the beast in his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. In our minds, we think evil thoughts. With our hands, we do them. So you see, Schofield's even thinking, he's tracking the same way I am. That, when marking your forehead in your hand. For those of you who think that you're going to lose your salvation to the extent that you can lose it, that you're going to be damned because of a tattoo or a microchip, that is not what Scripture tells you. Scripture tells you it's a heart condition that gets you into the kingdom or keeps you out of the kingdom. A tattoo cannot change your heart. Okay? That's not the same thing. You take the mark of the beast basically means you accept the beast. Now, Brother Schofield is a little hyper focused on Islam. Don't forget that the seven-headed beast, or the one head that was wounded and comes back to life, that's more than likely Islam. But it's one head on a beast. So if we're talking about that beast, you're also at the same time talking about the seven-headed beast. The leopard bear lion beast is the seven-headed beast. They're the same. If I have Babylon, and I talk about Babylon, I'm also talking about the seven-headed beast at the same time. If I talk about Medo-Persia, I'm talking about the seven-headed beast at the same time. You cannot separate one of those seven heads from the beast itself. They go hand in hand. And remember what the seven-headed beast is that's the conglomeration, the sum total of all the kingdoms or empires that will control the Holy Land throughout the time of man until the world is remade. So Islam is just it's just a part of the satanic kingdom that will, all of it. Those are your seven hills. If you go back to Daniel, a mountain or a hill, those are also kingdoms, just like a beast. Okay? The beasts are satanic kingdoms. Mountain or hills, not necessarily. That's a prophetic language for a kingdom. The kingdom of Yahweh is said to be a mountain. Well, that's not satanic. Beasts are satanic kingdoms because they destroy and they trample. But it can still be, a mountain can still be a satanic kingdom. So the city on the seven hills, it's Rome, Joe. No. Excuse me. Don't have a cough button. The city on seven hills is Satan's mirror, his mimic. The shining city on the hill that Jesus talks about, that's the kingdom of Yahweh. The city on the seven hills, one hill for each head, that's the satanic kingdoms of the world. So that city on those seven hills is Satan's kingdom. It picture perfect parallelism, folks. If you learn the prophetic language first, then start reading prophecy. It fits. It all fits. And it fits over top of what Brother Schofield's doing. He's just got a few pieces of the puzzle out of place. That's all. Otherwise, I wouldn't be teaching this to you. So he continues in Revelation 16, verse 13. And I saw coming up out of the mouth of the dragon, being Satan, and out of the mouth of the leopard bear lion beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, Muhammad, 3 unclean spirits. The satanic angels of Babylon is how Schofield seeing this. Medo-Persia, Greece, i.e. the Islamic hegemony of the Middle East, 2 of which angels are mentioned in Daniel 10, 13, and 20. That's entirely possible, folks. Babylon, Medo-Persia, and Greece, 3 frogs, 3 unclean spirits. Very, very likely, because you combine them together and you have the prince who is to come. It says, as it were frogs, for they are spirits of demons working signs, which go forth unto the kings of the world to gather them together into the spiritual war of the great day of God, of Yahweh, the Almighty. And he continues, Revelation 19:20. And I saw the scarlet beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat upon the horse and against his army. This is Jesus on the horse. And the leopard bear lion beast was taken, and with him the false prophet Muhammad, that wrought the signs in sight of wherein he deceiveth them that he receiveth the mark of the leopard bear lion beast, and them that worshipped his image. They too were cast alive into the lake of fire that burneth with brimstone. Now, I know everybody's going to say, well, Muhammad's not alive. He can't be cast. I don't know exactly how this is going to work out, but be very careful about limiting Yahweh, especially when you're dealing with prophetic visionary language. Muhammad could be resurrected and cast alive into the lake of fire. Y'all got to keep track of what's going on here. This could very well all be talking about a time after the 7th trumpet has blown, in which case there is no more time. And what we think of as the rapture, the resurrection of all has already happened. This could all be part of the judgment day. So I don't know. I know enough to know to say, I, Joe, am not going to go making judgments on this real quick. Because Muhammad might actually be alive again in his body, sitting there watching this whole thing, waiting for himself to be sorted out as goat. Also, if you think, pay attention, and receiveth the mark, and the beast is going to be thrown in the fire. Everybody goes, yeah, see, that's the Antichrist. How do you throw a nation in the fire? You don't. You can't. That's not possible. Unless, of course, there's a spiritual prince behind that nation. Or princes, 3 leopard bear lion and 3 unclean, they can be cast into it. So if I have Nebuchadnezzar and I throw Nebuchadnezzar into the fire, haven't I thrown Babylon into the fire? In the ancient way of thinking, yes, I have. Well, Psalm 82, folks, those are not human beings that God is condemning in the council. He's condemning spiritual beings of great power that were given the positions to lead individual nations to Yahweh. And instead, they led the people to worship themselves. And Yahweh in return says, you will die like men. Well, what is the lake of fire but second death? So that concept, that thinking, that thought line, that imagery fits very well with what we're reading here. I'm not saying it's the way to interpret it. I'm telling you it fits very well. No hammers needed. So then he says, Revelation 20:10. And the devil, the red dragon and the scarlet beast. The devil is the dragon, the scarlet beast is the 7-headed, all the kingdoms under his authority. That deceiveth them, meaning the people, was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where are also the beast, the Islamic Empire, and the false prophet Muhammad, and they shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. Now, he's got a picture here. This is where we're going to probably stop for this hour. This is a very common picture in our world today. Quran in one hand, a knife or a sword or whatever in the other. Quran in one hand, murder in the other. That is not the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That is a God of destruction right there, a God of war. You know, the passage about, he'll worship a God of fortresses and war, a God that his father didn't know. The rhymes and reasons, folks, it all fits. It all clicks into place. It doesn't mean it's going to be stop looking for a perfect, 25 megapixel, clearly focused, HD picture. Be happy with the fuzzy picture. Be happy seeing the general painting as through a mirror, like Paul says. And remember, when he says mirror, he's not talking about glass mirror. He's talking about a piece of bronze or brass that's been polished really, really well. And if you've never seen one of those mirrors, You can shave by it, but you're not going to be plucking your eyebrows or anything with it, ladies. It's not good enough. So the point is, it's never all going to come into sharp focus. Don't try to make it. Look for the spiritual warnings, and that's what will protect you. So if you see this spiritual sign that you're told to watch out for show up in one form, you'll avoid it. But you'll also avoid it when it shows up in another. And I've seen a lot of brothers and sisters that are looking for the Tim LaHaye Left Behind stuff, that they avoid this one person, but they miss the other one because that was their Antichrist, and they ignored everybody else and embraced them. They were still Antichrist, but you embraced them because you already thought your Antichrist was over here. Be very, very careful. Very, very careful. You have to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Meaning you're not going to have the assurity that the church teaches today. You know, say my prayer, got myself dunked, I'm good to go. I don't have to worry about anything anymore. Not what the Bible teaches you. Not what Paul teaches you. So same thing with prophecy. Be careful with it. It's Yahweh's prophetic word. How about a little fear and reverence when we approach it? Use it properly, and it's a very powerful evangelical tool. Use it inappropriately, and it is a very destructive weapon in the hands of Satan. Be careful with it, folks. And when we come back, he's going to continue in on Islam. And we'll see where we want to leave off for today. But what he's going to bring to you on Islam, you need to pay attention to. The church has largely gone to sleep on this. Big mistake. Huge mistake. And if you're paying attention to the news, we have literally a leopard bear lion beast on the UN's property now. They made the statue. I've shown you the picture. And they're setting up Chrislam as a world religion. That is literally the harlot playing around with the dragon. Literally the harlot riding the seven-headed dragon. Literally. Remember, harlotry is always apostasy. And Islam is just the most extreme apostasy that the world has ever seen. They still claim the same Bible of the God of the Bible. They've just morphed him into something that's unrecognizable. Instead of Aaron making a golden calf and saying, "Behold, Israel, your Elohim, your God Yahweh that brought you out of Israel," they made some sort of other abomination, and then said, "Hey, look, it's not even that golden calf; it's this thing here now." And totally perverted Yahweh in his nature, flipped him on his head, 180 degrees. But they still think they're worshiping the same God. They'll tell you that. They believe that. It's in the Quran. So, apostasy. All right, we're going to give them a 6-minute break, Charlie. When we come back, we're going to continue with the slideshow for today. We'll see you in 6 minutes. Y'all do your running, get your drinks or whatever else, and get your booty back in the pew. See ya. All right. Hey, before we get back into the class, got to share an email with you. I don't know if you saw Tuesday's show, but apparently Evil Joe took over the show and did it in my place. Looked like me, sounded like me, but it was Evil Joe. I got an email from one of the listeners that said, started listening on the way home because this listener does the podcast. He says, okay, where is Sergeant Makanovic and what have you done with him? I will come find you. So apparently that side of me doesn't sit well with some of y'all out there. So I found that very amusing. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was suspicious too when I saw the title. So, yeah, I understand where that person is coming from.
All right, Natasha. That's a Charlie reference, Charlie the Unicorn reference. Okay, there's a lot of inside jokes going on here with Charlie and Natasha and I, and y'all aren't privy to them because we won't show them to you. It's private. It's before the show starts. All right, back the pew. Enough messing around. Brother Schofield goes on. He says, murderous behavior of the leopard bear lion. Graphic video, Muslims slaughter apostate in Tunisia. This is posted on June 10th, 2012 by creepingsharia.com. It's via graphic video, Muslims slaughtered apostate in Tunisia, Gatestone Institute. I am not going to give you those links. I did go see the video at one point. I think it might have been scrubbed, but we'll cover that in a minute. If you have downloaded the PDF file here that we've been going through off of your homework, the links are hot. So if they're still up, you'll be able to go find that. He says there is unanimity that the male apostate must be put to death. According to Muhammad, an apostate is the worst possible thing you could possibly be. And an apostate is a Muslim who leaves Islam. So liberal talk show host Tawfiq Okasha recently appeared on Egypt Today, airing a video of Muslims slicing off a young man's head for the crime of apostasy. In this instance, the crime of converting to Christianity and refusing to renounce it. The video can be seen here, but be warned, it is immensely graphic. And then he's got the link. The actual execution appears from the time of 1 hour 13 to 1 hour to 4 minutes or somewhere in there, or 1 minute 13 to 4 minutes. I don't know. I'm not going to go back and watch it. But he goes over here. He's going to narrate it. It says a young man appears held down by masked men. His head is pulled back with a knife to his throat. And he says he doesn't even struggle anymore. It appears resigned to his fate. Speaking in Arabic, the background speaker or the narrator chants a number of Muslim prayers and supplications, mostly condemning Christianity, which, because of the Trinity, is referred to as a polytheistic faith. And it says, let Allah be avenged on the proselyte apostate. Allah empowered your religion, make it victorious against the polytheists. Allah defeat the infidels at the hands of the Muslims. And there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. Then to the cries of Allah, Allahu Akbar, which means God is greater, literally, because Allah is the Arabic version of Elohim, basically just means God. So Allah is greater. The masked man holding the knife to the apostate's throat begins to hack away, severing the head completely after approximately 1 minute of graphic knife carving as the victim drowns in his own blood. Finally, the severed head is held aloft to more Islamic slogans of victory. Visibly distraught, Tawfiq Akasha, the host, asks, is this Islam? Yes, Tawfiq, yes it is. He says, these are the images that are disseminated throughout the electronic media in Europe and America. Can you imagine? Then in reference to Egypt's Muslims, Muslim Brotherhood and Salafis, whose political influence has grown tremendously, he asks, how are such people supposed to govern? You know, the terrorists, the murderers. This is all back in the 2012 era, folks. This is back under Obama. This is only the other day, a prominent Egyptian Salaf leader referring to the conical hadith. Remember, I've told you about the hadith. Conical means these are the hadith of, they hold religious sway in law. They're commandments. That's their New Testament in Islam, including Muhammad's command, whoever leaves his religion, kill him. If you leave Islam, you're to be killed. This guy openly states that no Muslim has the right to apostatize or leave Islam. This is one of Egypt's leaders saying this. Any number of back at that time, any number of Islamic legal manuals make explicitly clear that the apostasy is a capital crime, punishable by death. The first righteous caliph, a model of Muslim piety, had tens of thousands of former Muslims slaughtered, including by burning, beheading, and crucifixion, simply because they tried to break away from Islam. According to the Encyclopedia of Islam, the most authoritative reference work on Islam in the English language, there is unanimity that the male apostate must be put to death. If you go to theroadtoconcord.com and you do a search for the Quran or Hadith, Hadith, you're going to find the page where I put up a whole bunch of this stuff, the show we did on Islam. And a lot of the Hadith, there's a PDF you can download. And a lot of this is where the ugly side of Islam hides. And that I put a PDF file of many of the Hadith, the official canonical Hadith of Islam. And you can read through them. You read it for yourself. And the PDF before that one is a lot of the things that are in the Quran. But Muhammad said forcefully that all Muslims, Shia or a Sunni, you must kill the apostate. This is why Shia Islam wants to destroy Mecca and Riyadh, because the Shia considers the whole of Sunni apostate, all Sunnis. It would be like the Catholic Church thinking that Protestants are apostates. Only in this case, Sunni is the majority, Shia is the minority. Shia Islam is only about 10% of Islam. It's like they're the true remnant. They're still following Muhammad. Sunni has made a different religion out of things. So if you really wanted to do it, it'd be like Jews saying Christians, Jews being Shia, Christians being the Sunni, and Jews saying we got to get rid of all the Christians because they're apostates. When I tell you that I know Obama is still a Muslim because he's alive, that's what this is about. Islam would have wasted 10,000 jihad warriors to get to and kill Obama. Because if he had actually apostatized into Christianity for real, and he was that prominent on the world stage as the American president, they would have taken him out. It's that serious for them. It's not a joke. And that's why I know that, and some of the prayers that he said in Islam, in Arabic, Islamic prayers, while he was president, I recognized some of them and I knew what he was praying, and it wasn't what the media was telling you he was saying. The man's Muslim. No Christian would have repeated those things. No Christian would have repeated them. And no Christian would have made the mistake of saying my Muslim religion in the interview with Stephanopoulos. Why is that important? He's pretending to be a Christian. He's bringing peace, so he says, and he's actually bringing the caliphate back into being. He's destroying through peace. I'm not saying he's the world leader that comes against Israel in the end. That's not what I said. I said he fits the pattern. He fit the pattern perfectly. But so do others. He's not the only one. Still from that article that Brother Schofield links us to, he says, finally, a word on the prayers of supplications to Allah made by the Muslim executioners in the video. These are standard and formulaic. If you are a non-Arabic speaker and you become a Muslim, you learn these Arabic prayers because according to Islam, they only work if you say them in Arabic. A lot of Muslims will say these prayers 5 times a day and they have no idea what they're saying. It's like Richie Valens singing La Bamba. He didn't speak Spanish. He learned the song, but he didn't speak Spanish. They mimic their prayers in Arabic, but they don't understand them. So in other words, they are not just masked anonymous butchers who pray to Allah as they engage in acts of cutting throats and holding up heads. These are top-ranking Muslim leaders who appear regularly on TV who invoke such hate-filled prayers. And he's got a link to another place where you can see it. Examples of Muslims supplicating Allah to strike infidels with cancer and disease till they pray for death and do not receive it. That's a quote. That comes out of Hadith. There are 7 formalized prayers in Mecca blasted on megaphones as Muslims honor their obligation to go on pilgrimage at least once in their lives, supplicating Allah to make the lives of Christians and Jews, quote, hostages to misery, drape them with endless despair, unrelenting pain, and unremitting ailment, fill their lives with sorrow and pain, and end their lives in humiliation and oppression, unquote. And then you have this picture here, freedom to go to hell. Galatians 5:1 says, stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith Christ hath made us free, and be not entangled again with the yoke of bondage. The bondage Islam will inflict on the world is directly opposed to the freedom that we have in Christ Jesus. Remember what Islam means. Peace, Joe. No, that is not what the word means. Look it up in an Arabic lexicon. It means submission. Submit. Well, yeah, Joe, like you got to submit to Christ. Christ makes you free. Allah makes you a slave. I call myself a slave of Jesus. Yep. And Muslims call themselves a slave of Muhammad or Allah. Remember what I told you. We're dealing with photo negatives here. Allah is not Yahweh. That's probably the spiritual being behind Allah is probably the prince who is to come. More than likely. Best evidence I have, in which we know is a henchman of Satan, of Satan, the devil. So, I mean, literally, if you want to do the etymological, you look into the origins of the word, you're going to find Allah goes back to Bel, B-E-L, the moon goddess. Well, Baal's a sun god, Joe. Yeah. But Charlie, pop your mic on real quick. If I'm writing in these Semitic languages like Hebrew and Aramaic, how would I spell Bel and Baal? BL, right?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And I wouldn't know the difference, would I?
No. Depends on whether you live in the South or
right.
Boston.
Context wouldn't even tell me which one I'm dealing with.
No.
So, folks, they are the same God. It's just like he said, whether or not you're living in Southern Arabia or Northern Canaan, they're the same God. And when you trace them form and function, they're the same God. Well, why would we be worried about the Baal and the Canaanite God if we're a Christian or Jewish believers? Well, all he did was morph himself and went back from that to Baal, which is now Allah. Remember, Allah is the greatest of deceivers, folks. He also says he's a rat. That's one of the 99 beautiful names of Allah. Rat. Yes, as in R-A-T, rodent, rat. Yeah, I don't understand how that's a beautiful name of Allah, but it's one of them. Okay, so at present, when this slideshow was done, it's 2012, I think. He says, present Muslim persecutions of infidels. Worldwide, there have been over 19,100 deadly Islamic terrorist attacks since 9/11. That was only like 12 years from, whatever. Impossible to keep current. Many attacks remain unreported. Here are those reported over 3 days, just 3 days. And if you want to see these, you can look at these later. I'm not going to put them up, but he's got those. He does make a note here. Schofield says, in England, mostly in London, there have been approximately 3,000 so-called honor killings perpetrated by Muslims. We've had them in the United States as well. And by and large, they were not prosecuted the way they should have been. Sharia law, the two-tiered law system, does exist in this country now. Thank you, Barack Obama. Schofield ends on this part of the show. He says, any God whose holy book directs people to commit unspeakable acts of cruelty and murder is not the creator of the universe, but Satan in disguise. Islam has not changed its goals or its behavior just because it crossed the Atlantic. So don't be fooled by their lies. I want to say something to you real quick. One of the things Muhammad is famous for saying over and over again is Islam does not change. Islam does not change. Islam does not change. He's mimicking Yahweh. I think it's in Micah or Micah. It says, Yahweh, I am Yahweh, I do not change. Islam is the photo negative of the Judeo-Christian faith. What we think is good, they say is bad. What we say is bad, they say is good. I did a lot of work. I spent 1.5 years in the Quran, the Hadith, in the history of Islam. Hard reading. I know what we're dealing with. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's patient. It's at work in this country right now. It's infiltrating the church. It's taking over the Holy Roman Catholic Church. It's taking over the Protestants. And by and large part, Christians have accepted the lie about how it just means peace. It's not really about terror in Islam. That's a morphing of their beautiful. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Muhammad said, I am victorious through terror. Muhammad said to slay the non-believer until there is only Islam. That was his last command before he died. If you are a faithful Muslim, you have to be waging jihad until there's nothing left on this planet, the face of this planet, except your religion, which would be a photo negative of the mountain of Yahweh spreading throughout the entire world until there is nothing left but the kingdom of Yahweh. You think for a second that Yahweh looked through time and gives us the prophetic word of all these things he's told us about that were going to happen, and he just left Islam out of prophecy? We were so focused on Rome, we missed the fact that the rest of the world, the non-Judeo-Christian world, thinks of it as the Greco-Roman Empire. Well, Joe, it was thighs. Oh, yeah, that's right. You got two thighs, don't you? Yeah, a split empire. Gee, fancy that. I've got something else for you real quick I want to show you. Next week, we're going to start with the Scarlet Beast. We'll do the Scarlet Beast and the Mark of the Beast. But today, if you want to know about dhimmis or dhimmitude, this is how you're going to live under Islam if we don't stop it. It's coming. It's here. It's in the United States already. This lady calls herself Bat Yor. She's a Christian. She was born in Egypt. She has been writing for decades, trying to tell Europe that Islam is coming. Islam's going to take over. Has anybody out there in the show, in your classroom, been paying attention to what's going on in Europe right now in regard to Islam? Islam, by and large, has taken over large sections of Europe now. Nobody listened to this woman. She was a watchman on the wall, screaming for all she was worth, and nobody paid attention. Pretty much everything she's warned us about is over with. It's done. It's too late now. But you might find that of some use to you. It's dhimmi.org, dhimmi.org. Remember, a dhimmi, that's a Jew or a Christian living under basically servitude under Islam. And then there's Jihad Watch. A lot of people hear about this. The left likes to poo-poo this. It's been morphed into basically a newspaper, but it online news art paper, but it focuses on Islam. And I still go to it. It'll bring stories to you you're not going to see anywhere else. And then this woman here has been largely villainized by our media for good reason. She's the one who exposed Obama for what he is, him and his ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. This is Pamela Geller in the Geller Report. She's turned her page into, when she first started out, she was different, but she's turned her, it was all focused on nothing but Islam. Now she still does articles that you're not going to see anywhere else, and focuses on Islam and everything, but other things as well. I mean, it's a political site, but if there's an article out there dealing with Islam and the jihad, she's going to put it up there for you. You're going to have to go looking for this stuff. They're not going to bring it to you. They're not going to tell you about it. So what's all this got to do with my faith as a Christian? Well, if you accept that Islam are just your brothers and sisters in the Bible, and that their faith is all about peace and the terrorists are the bad guys, congratulations, you've bought a deception, a lie. And it's going to get you thinking the wrong way. You might figure, Allah's just another name for Yahweh. Don't laugh. I know a friend of mine who was a Christian and he became a Muslim because that's what he thought it was. It was just, he's like the Jews had a revelation, then Jesus brought another revelation, and then Muhammad was just the next step in Christianity. And that's what he thought it was. And he became a Muslim. Now he's nothing. He's left Islam. And I was going to lunch with him one time. And I think I've told you this story before. I let the whole crowd go ahead of us, and I lingered back with him. And I said, what do you mean you're not a Muslim anymore? I said, they're going to kill you. And he looked at me and he goes, you do know Islam? I said, yeah. And he says, well, I'd appreciate it if you don't tell anybody about this. I pretend to still be Muslim. He goes, but I don't follow any of it anymore. My friend's still alive. Thank Yahweh. Hopefully he'll find a way back to Yahweh. Right now he's living as a agnostic. But it's that dangerous in Islam. It is. And they will come after their own first. And this is why a lot of the Shia kill the Sunni, because they see them as apostates. And we don't teach Islam in our country, not correctly, not truthfully. And I'll be honest with you, in my opinion, if you're in a church and your pastor has not given you at least one sermon on Islam, you need to grab that pastor by his chin of his chinny chin chin. Or if he doesn't have a beard, grab him by his ears and ask him why not. Because Islam is the very definition of Antichrist. Go read John's description of what the spirit of Antichrist is. You're reading Islam. You are reading the basic tenets, the pillars of Islam. Why would the Christian church not need to know about this? It's supposed to be blind to your enemies and what they're after and how they work? No. You're supposed to be in the world, not of it. Wise as a serpent, but innocent as a dove. Well, that means you need to know these things. And the teacher should be teaching the flock about this stuff. So, Joe, are you telling me I shouldn't have friends with a Muslim friend? I shouldn't be? Yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you. Well, my Muslim friends are really friends. You don't know that. You can't know that, especially if they're Sunni. Because if they're Sunni, Muhammad commanded them, it's okay to lie to you non-believers, you infidels. If you're not a Muslim, you're an infidel. It's okay to lie to you. It's not lying in their belief system. It's just deception, and deception is war. So if they're Sunni, if they ever seat a caliphate that both Shia and Sunni accept, and he declares global jihad, do not be surprised if your peaceful, loving you Sunni neighbor all of a sudden has a machete and he's after your head. Because that's why he's behaving, or she. Because they believe that there has to be an officially recognized caliph to declare global jihad. Shia thinks that anybody can do that. Any Muslim can do that all on their own. Technically, the Shia are correct if you want to follow the teachings of Muhammad. So, yeah, I know this is Worship Wednesday on Thursday. Yeah. Why am I going over all of this? We're told the closer and closer we get to the Messiah returning, the more and more deceptive the world will get. You literally have Islam running huge parts of this country and our government. You have Islam infiltrating the Vatican, making buddy-buddy with them, taking over, going to create a one world religion called Chrislam. That's been in the news. Just look it up. You'll find it. Islam hasn't gone anywhere, folks. And you got morons in our country who think that they can control Islam. No, they can't. Islam's been around a lot longer than these secular humanist idiots have been, and they'll be here a lot longer unless the Messiah comes back. Now, you remember the passages? I think it's in Isaiah, and it's mimicked again. It's repeated, rather, in Book of Revelation. It says, who is this that comes from such and such an area with his garments drenched in blood? You know, the wine, it is I, mighty to save, who have come from trotting the winepress. Yeah. I'm paraphrasing it. But you know that passage in prophecy, right? Jesus comes from this area we call Moabite or whatever the heck, and he says, and there was nobody there but I took out my own vengeance and wrath. Today, you know where that would be? Mecca. He lays waste to all of Saudi Arabia. Doesn't leave a soul, according to prophecy. I've always wondered, how could you destroy an entire nation and not get one innocent believer in the process? Islam. And that's the area that prophecy says Jesus will go all by himself. He doesn't even take the army of the saints. He wipes that stuff out all on his own. the word of his mouth. All of the peoples and nation groups that come against Israel in the battle of Ezekiel, Gog and Magog, every one of them today is Islamic. The 4 horsemen, black, white, red, and green. Yeah, I know we say pale, but it's actually green. The word is the same root word we get chlorophyll from, green color of plants. It's a pale, sickly color green. But those are the colors of Islam. I'm not saying the 4 horsemen are Islam. No. But I'm saying they are the 4 colors of Islam. Islam is very central to the end times prophecies. And if we're not reading prophecy with that in mind, I honestly think we're missing something. If we're all thinking Rome, it's always Rome. Rome. How much of the biblical history was Rome a problem for? Your Old Testament was already written and done before the Romans took over the Holy Lands. So your Old Testament, the Tanakh, that canon is in the books. So it's just the New Testament, right? And how long did Rome rule over the Holy Lands? Really have a stranglehold on it? About 300 years? 350, 400 tops. So that 400 years should be central to everything that we're going to do for the rest of the 2,000-year Christian era? I don't think so. It didn't have jack squat diddly to do with the 1,500 to 2,000 years before, or go back even farther to Adam and Eve. Islam does. Islam goes all the way back to Assyria. Not in the form of Islam recognized as a religion, but Bel does. The God that will later become known as Allah goes all the way back to the very first Gentile satanic nation that ruled over the Holy Lands. Goes all the way back. Nothing's changed. Leopard, bear, lion, 3 unclean frogs all tied around to the river Euphrates. Right there in the middle of what we think of today is the heart of the Middle East, the heart of Islam. Yeah, connections. That's why I think the church needs to know this stuff. That's why I think the church should be paying attention to this stuff. That's why Brother Schofield goes a little over the top in his slideshow with Islam. And I don't know if you know where that saying over the top comes from, but that's in World War I when you went over the top of the trench where all the machine gun bullets were. It usually meant certain death. Yes, ma'am.
We are already being brainwashed to accept Islam. Like, this reminds me, I saw a commercial a while back, and at first it talked about anti-Semitism. Oh, that's bad. And these little speech bubbles popped up. First one said racism, crossed the line through it. Second one, I don't remember, crossed the line through it. Third bubble says Islamophobia, crossed the line through it. And this commercial was initially supposed to be about anti-Semitism? Like, nah.
I know. Once you know what to look for, you're going to
Yeah.
see it everywhere. Yep.
Yeah, just felt like I
Nope.
needed to share that.
You're good. You're good, Natasha. John Quest comment on the board, and it says, and what they do to small boys, dressing them up as females, is worse than the Catholic Church. Folks, there's nothing wrong with homosexuality between a man and a boy in Islam. It's just that that's supposed to be reserved for heaven, their version of heaven, where there will be young little boys sitting there waiting on them. And yeah, the connotation is it's there. It's clearly stated in Muhammad's writings, in his books on prophecy and stuff, about their idea of heaven. So yeah, it's there. It's in their culture. It's hidden, but it is there. And it's something that's promised to them. Not to mention, it's not 72 virgins, not in the existing Qurans. It's 72 white grapes. 2 virgins, perpetual virgins. They can never be de-virginitized. And they have skin so fair it's translucent. It's like they're look through human beings that you can see through them or whatever. And you're going to have each and every man's going to have his own garden flowing with milk, river of real milk, goat's milk or something. Some of the things that Muhammad wrote. Now, you have to understand, living where they lived, if you've never been to Saudi Arabia, it's a wasteland. I get it. I understand why this would be appealing to people. But I also understand that Islam was dying out until he decided to make it legal to rob and pillage, rape, pillage, and plunder. And then his religion exploded after that because he made it religiously legal. And in the process of doing it, if you got killed raping, pillaging, and plundering, you get to go into heaven with all these nubile little boys and these 2 perpetual virgins and this river of milk and your 72 white grapes. So, whatever. Anyhow, next week we will look at the Scarlet Beast and we'll look at the Mark of the Beast, what it is, maybe a few other things. Tomorrow, I'm going to teach a little Middle Eastern culture, ancient history. I'm going to connect it to the founding of this country, and we'll be doing a little Bible work along the whole way. We're going to talk about covenants tomorrow. A lot of people are going to poo-poo that. You should pay attention to tomorrow's class. It is crucially important. Whether you believe or not is irrelevant. This nation is a covenant nation. The covenant was made by our leaders. The covenant was made with Yahweh. You cannot disannul a covenant. Once it's made, it exists forever, perpetuity. If you break it, you get the curses. The only way to get back in good line with the person you made the covenant with, here in this case Yahweh, is to repent, turn back and seek his face again. If this nation refuses to do that, all you're going to get are the curses, which is exactly what 9/11 is. 9/11 is the result of a broken covenant. If you have not read The Harbinger by Jonathan Cahn, you might want to. We repeated, and I mean almost word for word in some cases, the mistakes that the Northern Kingdom made right before it toppled. And the people of the prince who is to come, they're going to tear down the temple. The people of the prince who is to come were the exact same people that perpetuated 9/11. Ethnically, they're from that little area we call Assyria in the Bible. Leopard, bear, lion, beast. Nothing's changed. The prophetic patterns are still echoing through the halls of time. So let's have a look at the covenants tomorrow. Might help you open your scriptures up a little better. And if you pay attention to the fact that they're not poo-poo, mumbo-jumbo, witchcraft, and myth and lore, like we've been taught to, if you realize that these things are real, they're spiritually real, you might start understanding why I think we're in such trouble as a nation. But you'll also see that there's still hope. It'll depend entirely upon the remnant. Until then, we love each and every one of you. We'll see you tomorrow. We hope you all stay safe. Those of our friends and family that are in the classroom that are still up there without power in southern parts of Georgia and parts around Tallahassee and over to Jacksonville, Florida, praying that Yahweh protects you and that the line crews are safe and they get the work done quickly and get your power back to you. See y'all tomorrow.